Story told. How do you tell a story where there is no presence and sometimes there's a lot of absence and gaps? How do you tell that story? Well, I hail from Eastville, which is east of the village. And that's how Eastville got its name. Before that, it was Snooksville. And you think about how communities are shaped and formed, and they need institutions to actually be a community. So whether it's a post office box, whether it's a church or a school, you need kind of an anchor for that community. And for Eastville, it was the St. David A. Zion Church. That church was an anchor to the community. If you look at the census in 1830, that's the first time that we see the name Eastville in the census. And so you measure that time, a 10-year span. In 1840, the St. David A. Zion Church was formed. And so that really tells you a lot about the community. In a 10-year span, you have people coming to the community to start this church. We know that there were various churches around, but unfortunately they did not meet the needs for the community members that were going there. Sometimes they would be relegated to different spaces in the back or the balconies to worship. So St. David A. Zion Church was formed. Another thing to say about Eastville is that it is a multicultural community. It is African American, Native American, and European immigrants. Yes, there are historic Black African American developments outside of Eastville, but before those developments in the 30s, Eastville was here. So it's really important to say that. The other thing about this church is that this is the oldest church on its original footprint in Sag Harbor. And when the historic districts were being formed, they stopped a block before Eastville Avenue, is where this church is. Needless to say, the Eastville Community Historical Society organized to say we want to be included in the story. After all, African American history is American history. So this is just to give you an idea of the map. People often say, well, where is Eastville? So if you see throughout the years, you'll see that in 1854 that there wasn't a lot of people living in that area. And then as the maps go on, you see the map starts to fill out. And this is really important because this community served as a growth for many of the African Americans and Native Americans who were in the whaling industry and a part of the ancillary businesses around maritime history here in Sag Harbor. So this kind of gives you an idea about the community itself. Now you'll see Hempstead Street, Liberty Street. This is kind of the shape of where Eastville is, east of the village. So looking at the development over time, you see that how it was moving east. And that's the funny thing about Sag Harbor. Half is in East Hampton Town, the other half is in Southampton Town. So as you can see, one of the things that we pride in 1857, the St. David A. Zion Cemetery was developed for the members of St. David A. Zion Church. This is our historic marker that we just received from the William Palmery Foundation to mark our cemetery. And this cemetery, as I said, was established in 1857. It's important to say that the members that founded the church you saw was Cuffy, was Plato. These were the original founders of the church. But the people who bought over to the left, there is a deed up in the corner. The people who bought the cemetery also include Elias Dermy and also David Hempstead. These two members were originally from Shelter Island. We do see in the census map that Esther and David were also working at Sylvester Manor, and that's our connection to Sylvester Manor. These are various of my board members that were in that picture. But we are now undertaking a lot of work with our cemetery. We actually were deeded the cemetery, I believe it was October 12th, 2001. The congregation dwindled down and deeded the cemetery to Eastville Community Historical Society. Since then, we have undertaken GIS mapping to find out where the various sites are. We've also done ground penetrating radar to also help us. And these are students from the University of Minnesota that came to do some of the archaeological work. We've also undertaken historic documentation, is something that we're also working on. So we also received a lot of funding from like the Archaeological Institute of America to undertake preservation efforts for the cemetery. So here are some of the things that we have a mission. The chair of the Cemetery Preservation Committee is here. That is Michael A. Butler. He's up there, and he's here today. So we regularly engage in public engagement to involve the community in the cemetery and what's going on there. There are a lot of preservation efforts that are underway. We've instituted a stone cleaning workshop, and we have kits if anyone wants to come down and help us clean our stones. We engage children, we provide tours, and our mission is continue to work on preservation of this cemetery so that the presence, the historic presence of African Americans on the East End doesn't disappear. Had it not been for this church, had it not been for this cemetery, how much of a historic presence would we have? So these are vital to not just Eastville, but it's vital to many of the European immigrants that were buried here, to many of the Native Americans that were also buried here. So this cemetery also symbolized the multicultural aspect of our community. Thank you.